Howdy. Thanks for the shout out, Aggies. Are there any Longhorns here? No Longhorns. That's awesome. So welcome. We do have 8 wonderful, beautiful children, my wife and I. And when you have 8 kids, people ask you a lot of questions. Most of them borderline dumb or offensive, at least. Like, that's none of your business. But one of the questions we get a lot is, do you know all their birthdays? Like, yes, this is the most important day of our life. When our kids were born, of course we know their birthdays. Do you know their middle names? No, man, there's 8 of them. That's impossible. But it's on the birth certificate, and so if we have to look it up, we can. Thank you, Vice President, for laughing. I appreciate that. We're done here. I have a great story with one of my number 6. Obviously, everybody has a number. And when our guest of honor here in 2020 was debating Kamala Harris, bless her heart. All right, y'all aren't fans, me neither. But anyways, I was watching the debate, and I was in our living room and sitting on our couch, and I was alone. Most of the kids were asleep or supposed to be asleep, and Mary Lisa was doing all the things that I was probably supposed to be doing. And I'm watching the debate, and did the thing where men, we like talk to the TV, even though there's nobody around. How much we value our own opinion. There's nobody to hear it, but we'll say something during a football game. And I'm watching it, and I go, man, Vice President Pence is crushing Kamala Harris in this debate. And I hear this this laughter, and my little sweet Mary Kate, who's 4 years old, is behind the couch, and I turn around, and she goes, Daddy, you're so silly. He's not crushing anything. He's just talking. Which is all it required. We're honored to have you. Thank you. You are a class act, and we were honored to have you as our vice president. We're honored to have you. Thank you for being pro-life your whole life. It is a good time to be in Texas, as we just have the Heartbeat Act, which was enacted last year. And the Heartbeat Act has done something that highlights why we're here and why you're here, as we now have to point out to half of our country that heartbeats are good, that you don't have to argue for a heartbeat. We spend a lot of money in our country trying to keep our hearts beating. We listen to a lot of people. Heartbeats are good. And that debate carries on what we're seeing in America since 2019. Because in 1973, the Supreme Court changed what it meant to be an American. They did it once with Dred Scott, and this time it wasn't because of the color of their skin, it was because of their size and location. And we dehumanized a segment of our population and changed what it meant to be an American. And of course, Roe v. Wade allowed abortion through all 40 weeks. But we're not monsters. We're going to regulate abortion, and that's what states did. Until 2019, when some states took advantage of what Roe v. Wade allows, because Roe v. Wade is one of the most extreme laws in the world, literally. It puts us in a very small and shameful category with only North Korea, China, Vietnam, and Canada. So when Roe v. Wade enacted this in 2019, that became the year of infanticide. And we had governors like Governor Cuomo, we had Governor Northam describe the process on the radio. I don't know who that producer is and let that keep going. And he's a pediatrician who I don't recommend. And he describes it, and that was a good thing, because that woke a lot of people up in our country about the barbaric necessity that abortion has to be if it does what it says that it does, which is end the life of an unrepeatable human being. The only surgery you're not supposed to survive. And the doctors who are sitting there, when we go to that moment, I've done this 8 times, it's beautiful, there's nothing like your kid being born. And you look into their eyes for the first time. It's awesome. There's been a couple of time periods where we do it once a year. Everybody in the room is there for that innocent unborn child. Everybody's there. And we are saying now that we will deny medical care to an unborn baby girl because she committed the crime of surviving her abortion. It is literally unbelievable that that is the position of so many in our country, and that's what these governors did, and they didn't come out like Bill Clinton did and say, I don't like abortion, but I want to make it safe, legal, and rare, and everybody thought it was the greatest line in the world. They don't do that. They came out and smiled and celebrated, and Cuomo gave out high fives. And Northam described it on the radio. The calm with which it's defended is the scariest part that's going on in the United States of America. And as a result, 40 Days for Life grew. We've been growing since we did the first campaign ever in 2004. When we launched it in College Station, we quickly grew around the world to 64 different countries around the world because of people like you and local leaders who say we don't have to accept that there's a moral crisis in our neighborhood that we can fix now. And that is why 40 Days for Life has grown to 1 million volunteers around the world. We've seen 229 abortion workers have a conversion and leave their job. We know of 21,000 babies that have now been saved from abortion. And the first time I went out to pray at a Planned Parenthood, I didn't want to do it. Mary Lisa was my then girlfriend, now wife, and she wanted me to go, and I was pro-life, and I went. She told me to do it, and I did it. We've maintained that system ever since. And I remember it simply breaking my heart. And a lot of you have at some level had your heart broken through an abortion, through hearing about abortion, through knowing a friend who had an abortion, through having one yourself. One of my favorite statistics with 40 Days for Life is that 25% of our local, wonderful 40 Days for Life leaders are women who have had an abortion, with a few of them leading their local campaign outside of the exact place they had their abortion 20, 30 years ago. It's beautiful. As 40 Days for Life grew around the world, we got an American stereotype. This is a bad thing. It's from America. They're a bunch of religious nuts. And the biggest highlight of that was in England, when The Guardian did a story and just blasted us. It was awesome. It was great coverage. I loved it. Some of the team members were like, "This is awful." I'm like, "Let them keep talking. We don't know anybody in England." And at the end of the article, they said, "And this movement started in the Wild West hills of Texas." Texas is not a curse word. One of the most beautiful things that we do is stick to our mission of focusing on hearts and minds. Nobody grows up wanting an abortion. Nobody grows up wanting to work in the abortion industry. And as these abortion workers started to leave, it was very personal for me. And in 2009, when Abby Johnson, the 2008 Planned Parenthood Employee of the Year, had her conversion after witnessing a live abortion and walked right into my office that was next door and had a meltdown that we would all pray that we would have if we were in that scenario, and any of us could have been. And Abby's story, as it's documented in Unplanned, the movie, there's one of those on your table. That's a beautiful story of the head and the heart. Because I didn't know Abby's parents were pro-life. I certainly didn't know her husband was pro-life. And it's a beautiful story that we can love these people out of the abortion industry. We can love the woman who is going in and feels she has no freedom and no choice, and she has to have an abortion. We can love these boyfriends when they actually show up. And we can love these women as they're leaving. 40 Days for Life is the last hope for the baby. But we are also the first sign of mercy to the woman as she's leaving. They're done with her. But she sees us, and we don't wave a Bible and tell her that she's going to burn in hell. We reach out to her, and we offer hope and healing and let her know exactly what we let her know when she got out of her car, which is, we're here for you. And that is attractive because it is truly the hands and feet of Christ on the sidewalk. And when they made Unplanned into a movie in 2009, and it became a wonderful hit. It was great. It exceeded everybody's expectations. And the gentleman who made that movie, Chuck and Carrie, they wrote God's Not Dead, but they're from New York, and they moved out to Hollywood to make movies, which sounds like you're going to end up living in your mom's basement. And they called me out of nowhere, and I had no idea they were making Unplanned into a movie, and they called me like they knew me and just started talking and saying, "Hey, we're going to make Unplanned into a movie. We're coming to your house tomorrow." I don't think so. And they did, and they flew down here, and we got them Rudy's barbecue, and they wanted to go to our headquarters in Bryan, because they rebuilt it so they could film the movie. And we walked around and we went into the room where the abortions are actually done. And these two tough guys who made a fantastic movie began to weep. And I'll never forget Carrie looking at me saying, "This is Auschwitz, and we are going to make this come alive on the big screen." And they did. And they did. And so many babies were born as a result. So many new volunteers came into the 40 Days for Life world. We were in a movie. We're not crazy. We say we're peaceful and prayerful, but I mean, now we're in a movie. And that went a very, very long way, because Chuck and Carrie could have made a very bad movie. But it reminded me of the way it was when I first went into our headquarters, the now closed Planned Parenthood in College Station, Texas. And I went into the room before it was raw. They had just left. Planned Parenthood took everything, even the tables. And I went into the back room where the surgical tables were, and you could see where the table was removed. And nothing was in there except for one thing. And it was hanging by a little paper clip. And it was a baby mobile, like you'd have balloons or stars, hanging over where the women used to lay. Because even at that moment, they wanted to distract her from what was going on. And that hit me hard, because 40 Days for Life tells people if you go out, you peacefully pray, you sign our statement of peace, and you can save a life. And that's required, because abortion is built on distraction. Distraction from the reality of life in the womb. Distraction that the woman has other options, as pregnancy resource centers now outnumber abortion providers 5-1. and other options that you simply don't have to do this today. It's a distraction from all that. And that convicted me like nothing else. Walking into a closed abortion facility, and we do tours all the time. But it's a reminder that we have to be here and that we have to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. And no one knew that better than one of our great leaders, Sue Thayer. Sue is the only former Planned Parenthood manager to ever lead a 40 Days for Life campaign outside of her former workplace. And she did that, and her facility ended up closing. And Sue was part of our national team, a wonderful, wonderful woman, a wonderful warrior for God. And last summer, Sue was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer and given only a few months to live. And that, unfortunately, was an accurate diagnosis. And we lost Sue Thayer in December. And so tonight, she would have loved this. She loved Vice President Mike Pence. We are going to pay a short tribute to our wonderful friend, Sue Thayer. We are fortunate enough to have 3 of Sue's 5 biological and adopted children here. If they would please stand. Thank you. And every year we give out a Leader of the Year award, and in Sue's honor, we are naming it after Sue Thayer. And the first recipient is from Marietta, Georgia. And I've asked some of our team and board members to come up because we will introduce our 2022 Sue Thayer Leader of the Year award. Suzanne and Peter Guy wanted a big family when they got married, but they suffered from infertility. And so one of the lessons they learned is we are trusting Jesus. You'll find that out when she comes up here. Eventually, Suzanne did get pregnant with Rachel, and friends told her that it was too early to share, but she couldn't help. She told everybody she was pregnant. And later in her second trimester, 3 different doctors concluded that Rachel was not compatible with life. They told Susan she needed to get an abortion or else she would die. Suzanne refused and trusted the Lord. Rachel was born 15 weeks premature and not expected to survive birth, but she made it. And Suzanne said, if there's a heartbeat, I'm having the baby. As a teenager, Rachel wrote to the doctors who said that she should be aborted. And 2 of them wrote back saying that they were glad she made it. That's nice. While Rachel was still a teenager, Suzanne and Rachel, mother and daughter, decided they would lead the 40 Days for Life campaign in Marietta, Georgia, and man, do they lead. They have saved numerous babies, including one just this last week that we found out about. They have worked across denominational lines to get evangelicals, Catholics, and mainline Protestants involved in 40 Days for Life, something that has been a huge blessing for our organization and has been great, especially as a Catholic from Baptist East Texas. They run part of our 40 Days for Life 365, so they have people out there all year round praying, and they are constantly getting women away from their local abortion facility. And we know now of 46 babies that are alive today. And so we are honored to be the first recipient of the 2022 Sue Thayer Leader of the Year Award. Goes to Suzanne and her daughter, Rachel Guy. You got to come up here. Okay, so we are presenting her with a custom-made jacket. As a suggestion, you got to keep going outside and leading. And with a 40 Days for Life brick. This is a brick from the wall that Planned Parenthood built in Bryan, Texas, where 40 Days for Life first began. We tore down the wall, and we made it as a reminder that with God, all things are possible. Are you going to talk? I know you can.
Thank you so much. What do you say? Shout out to Sue's children. What a privilege to have such an honor and associated with such an incredible woman. Her legacy lives on through you guys in 40 days. Thank you, everybody here tonight. Thank you, our 40 Days family. We love you all so much. I'll just say, this ministry represents the very heart of God in a way that is so incredibly radical. And I know Shawn has shared so beautifully, and Sue's words and Shawn's words. There are no words to adequately describe how this ministry has such a purity. It is truly the picture of that Good Samaritan that Jesus gives us in Scripture. It is that ministry that says, I love you so much. I have compassion, but it's not just going to end there. I'm going to reach out and do something about it. We should be the ones giving you all awards because it is such a privilege to be a part of a ministry that is so absolutely beautifully the very heart of God, loving these women, loving these men, loving these children, loving the women that work in the clinic, loving the community. I don't know, there are many beautiful pro-life ministries out there, but I don't know another ministry out there that impacts people on so many levels. The entire family, the community, it's changing hearts and minds all over the world. And this is such a privilege because we love these people and we love this ministry so much. And thank you. And thank you, Vice President Mike Pence, for your heart. And thank you, all of you, for being here today and caring about life. And this is a supreme privilege. We love you all so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, and we'll FedEx you the brick. You don't have to take that on the plane. 40 Days for Life has grown so much over these last 14 years. But there's a lot of work to do. And we fully expect, God willing, that the Dobbs case that the Supreme Court heard will overturn Roe versus Wade in June. And they should do it. They should correct their error and make send it back to the states, and this would become very geographical. I spoke at the San Diego March for Life 2 months ago, and their mayor declared that San Diego would be an abortion safe haven if Roe is overturned. You see other governors and mayors making those declarations, and we are in the best shape we could possibly be because we're in every state. California is our largest state, and this becomes a geographic battle for what God has used this ministry to do, which is focus on hearts and minds. It can be legal, it can be supported by governors or politicians, but you cannot change the heart and soul and mind of the natural love that a mother has for her unborn child. They don't want to be there. And as we see Roe v. Wade overturned or not overturned, we are well prepared, and we have made a lot of plans to save a lot of babies and add to the 114 abortion facilities that we've helped close as a result of 40 Days for Life. And so be encouraged and listen to St. Paul. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap a harvest if we do not lose heart. The beginning of the end of abortion is not a tagline that we think sounds good. It is a fundamental reality that is happening, and we are grateful to labor alongside all of you to end this dark era in our great country's history. God bless you.